Hello and thanks for staying with us. Welcome to Political Platform on Repa Radio and Africa Independent Television, AIT. My name is Amechi Anapwe. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has extended the period for political parties to submit lists of candidates for the governorship and state assemblies elections scheduled for February 2027. The deadline originally set for Saturday, August 8, 2026 has been moved to Tuesday, August 11. That will be tomorrow. This followed appeals from political parties for additional time for the upload. Recall that INEC was also forced to extend the deadline for the upload of names of candidates for presidential and National Assembly elections to its portal. What does this say about the administrative capacity of the political parties? We shall seek answers as we will be joined by Austin Aibe. Austin Aibe is an electoral reform expert. He will join us to provide perspectives. We will also examine and talk about the state of the nation ahead of the 2027 presidential election. Talks of a single opposition presidential candidate are still on, but the dust raised by the visit of Catholic bishops to President Bola Tinubu has refused to settle. Is still up in the air as a Methodist bishop and executive secretary of the Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Commission, Stephen Adebite, tells John Cardinal Nayeko that supporting a preferred presidential candidate should not translate to disparaging other contestants. This is also as the national president of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, Bishop Waloke, throws his weight behind the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, declaring that any attack on Catholic bishops amounts to an attack on the entire body of Christ. It appears the position of religious leaders will play a very big role in the 2027 presidential election, as an Islamic cleric, Sheikh Yahya Jingi, has renewed his support for the Muslim presidential ticket, saying his adoption proves that Muslims outnumber Christians in Nigeria. We'll be weighing in on all this as I'm joined by my colleagues Uju Eje and Mustafa Mohammed. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
And we start with soundbite of what I told you earlier. A Muslim imam declaring that indeed that Sheikh Yahya Jingi, that Muslims are more in number in Nigeria, and it was a fact that was established during the 2023 presidential election when the Muslim ticket sailed through, and now that the ticket is up in the air again, he says, if you don't like it, leave the country. Let's take a listen to what he said. But for our listeners on radio, unfortunately, you won't hear the translation. We'll try to translate, but for those on TV, there's a translation. Take a listen, please.
Wanda ya daga tutar siyasarsu ya mata kirari da Muslim na ce ina ɗaya daga cikin masu daga tutar musulunci in kira jama'a ku taho mu yi Muslim. Na sani cewa kafirai na jin zafin wannan kalma, to amma ba akwai kiristoci ba akwai yahudawa ba akwai masu bautar magiro ba. Ni musulmi mai wa'azin musulunci da na ce muslim mai na taɓa nasu. Na hana kirishin ya faɗa ne, na hana magiro ya faɗa ne, na hana ɗan tantar ya faɗa ne. Amma ni a matsayi na musulmi muslim sha'a man sha'a au aba. Amma wani zai ce ai to demokradiyya ne, ai akwai suwa ne, ba sa sallah ba, kai ne wakilinsu. To mu muna sallah, muna azumi, kuma demokradiyya kun ce majority carry the vote. Jama'a, gauro da gauruwa, tuzuru da tuzuruwa, Allah ya ba ku abokan zaman tare na aure. Za su iya haɗa wannan taron? Jawanan ɗin nan ina kiran ku don Allah kowa je gyara ƙuri'a. mu nuna wa duniya ƙarya kafirai suke da suka ce sun fi mu yawa a Najeriya ƙarya suke yi ba dan Allah taimake mu na ce Muslim ba mai rabon jini sai ya ce sun fi mu yawa da aka buga Allah taimake mu ga kwantara su da ƙasa su zo na biyu ma ba su zo ba.
I can make out the majority carries the votes. Mustafa Mohammed would help us with some translation.
Yes, he was talking about democracy gives everybody freedom, just like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has chosen a Muslim running mate according to him. A Christian candidate has freedom to also choose a Christian running mate from anywhere in the country. He said if there are Jewish people or traditional religious worshippers, they also can carry the people of the same faith. He said he had supported the president in the previous election, the past general election. He is ready to do that. He said if it's numbers, because democracy is a game of numbers, majority carry the vote. The Muslims have numbers that they can give the president during election to make him win. Of course, Sheikh Yahya Jingir from Jos is a member of the Electoral wa Iqamati Sunnah. You know, they have faction. It's from...
What did you call the sect again?
Izala.
Izala
Simply,
sect.
yes,
Okay.
Izala sect. You know, but the Izala is not united. He is the leader of the Plateau faction, and the national leader is Balalo, but Balalo, Kabiru Gombe, and others belong to the Kaduna faction. But this will also tell you, for what we have been saying for a very long time, that the religious leaders are not apolitical. The religious leaders, just like many traditional rulers who are playing the game silently, others are playing the game openly. Religious leaders did not leave politics for the politician. A lot of them are involved, and you know, the politicians give a lot of incentives. Those years we know that Sheikh Yahya Jingir was a supporter of Atiku Abubakar. So I don't know what subsequently changed that.
I hear he supported him in 2023?
He has supported several times before.
Against the Muslim ticket? In 2023?
No, in 2023 he supported the Muslim
Okay.
ticket. In fact, in his own faction, he even had misunderstanding with some of his followers. But you see, northern Nigeria, especially the Muslims, are politically very active, very aware. No matter what an Islamic scholar tells them, no matter what political leaders tell them, when it comes to election, they vote for whoever they want.
But in the past, they listened to them and heed their advice. In the past.
No, you should be talking about a faction. When Buhari was coming, like the national Izala movement endorsed President Muhammadu Buhari for the election.
That's in 2015?
Yes, but if you look at their number compared to the number of other Muslims in northern Nigeria, you can never say that the Izala is higher in number as Muslims. But this also takes us to another issue in Kano, where the Tijaniya sect, according to reports we learned, was allegedly denied the use of the Sani Abacha.
We'll come back to that. Let Uju weigh in on the sound we just shared.
I think that religious leaders should try not to be parochial in whatever they do or say. I do not mind him saying, I mean, what he said is true as far as I'm concerned. You know, Nigerians, as a Nigerian, you have your rights. Democracy provides freedom for everyone to choose as they wish, and if the people back it. But in this case, I think that this is not really what we should be talking about at this point in time. We've certainly gone beyond Muslim ticket now. The candidates have already been declared, and uploaded to INEC. INEC has. So what was the point going back to there? And we should try as much as possible towards the election to stop those things that divide us, those things that would spark tension in the polity. He didn't have to say that, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what I feel. I think that this is not really necessary at this time because that idea has already been accepted and settled.
You were quite right when you said that is the reality. That is the fact. Across the world, politicians target sensibilities that will guarantee votes for them. Even in the U.S., if you believe if you can just tap onto some sensibilities that will guarantee vote, it gets out there. But the problem with the cleric was that he sounded so divisive, trying to pitch Muslims against Christians.
It's not necessary.
I don't think there would have been so much controversy if he had said, I support President Tinubu and Vice President Shetima in this election. But you know how dangerous, how sensitive religion is in Nigeria, trying to say, oh, we are, and the words he chose, we are dominating and all that. I mean, some other people may want to react and all that. So these are the issues he shouldn't have gone into. But the fact is that, I'll establish it again, politicians target these votes, whether they are religion-based, whether they are ethnic-based, whether they are professional-based, they target them. But the problem is the way you approach it.
And I think that in this case, it's like somebody who is just seeking attention. Like I said, we've gone past this stage. That's why you see it's not generating as much controversy as it would have 2-3 months ago, because people are wondering, hey, why isn't he going back to this issue? We already settled it. I mean, candidates are already set. So I think that in seeking attention, in seeking whatever, we should be careful. In seeking favors, whether from those in authority or whatever, we should be careful. We should put Nigeria first, especially that we know that religion is like pouring petrol into fire in this, in our polity. And we should avoid using it.
Mustafa Mohammed, I heard about 3 governors were there. I just saw Governor of Kano State, Abba Yusuf, and I expected them to have tried to pull the handbrakes, but I saw smiles on their faces.
You see, the man, even in Izala, he factionalized the Izala movement, which he's not the national leader. And at that point where he has already, there's this classic Arabian adage for those who study classic literature. They said, word is more dangerous than an arrow. If you shoot an arrow, you can miss your target. But when you're deliberately making some statements, you can't miss words when you want to carry out mischief. So he has already let the cat out of the bag. There was nothing anybody would have said. He was always controversial when he speaks. They would have spoken to him when he was not at the podium speaking. But still back to what he said. You see...
So I expected those politicians who understand better to have stood up to moderate what he said. I don't think they did.
The truth of the matter is...
Or were they enjoying it?
Having Muslim ticket does not disparage the Christian. If you look at President Bola Tinubu's government, you will discover that even among his ministerial appointees, you even have more Christians, which the Muslims don't have.
The Muslims are even complaining that they are...
Some Muslims, don't say somebody like me, why should I complain if you give an appointment to a competent Christian? You can give 100% Christian appointment if they are competent. Are you now comparing it to what Muhammadu Buhari did by appointing people who could not change the fortunes of the country? I spoke at Locksteader Foundation before 2023 election. Locksteader Foundation belongs to Father Dr. George Ehusani. And when it was my turn to speak, there was this much debate. People were talking about Muslim ticket. I told them that, look, not all Muslims belong to APC. not all Muslims are united and belong to one sect. You have Izala, Tariqa, Shia, people like Mustafa who don't belong to any sect. And because you have Muslim ticket, does not mean that every Muslim in Nigeria, whether in the north or south, will vote for Muslim.
Let's bring in Uju here. Muslim ticket sailed in 2023. President Tinubu got majority of his votes from northern Nigeria, from these core Muslim areas. 67% of the votes he got came from this place. So it's something that people, he will target, he want to consolidate, his opponents will want to chip out of it. And you have an Atiku Abubakar now. The initial...
He was there too. Was he not a Muslim? He contested.
Yes, in 2023. The reports initially we got was that those behind Atiku Abubakar were those core Muslims who felt shortchanged in the Tinubu administration. Now, if it's true they are backing him, and now this narrative of Muslim is coming up again, it will be a contest over who will get the votes in that part of the country.
Well, I believe that unlike in 2023, there's going to be a stiffer contest this time around, because some sections of the North, like you know, have been complaining, you know, about like what Mustafa pointed out, Christians getting more appointments in Tinubu's administration. So you have all of that, and some of them are really dissatisfied, maybe because you know, it had never been like this. In the past, they used to get more appointments, so to say, you know. And now they just cannot take it like that. But like I would always say, look, let the competent man get the job. Make Nigeria better. Make it easy for me to go to the market and buy food. Make it easy for me if I want to travel, not to go and buy ticket 250,000, ticket of 9,000 before, 10,000.
That's the key message.
Life.
That's
make the basic necessities of life. Make school children, make it easy to pay school fees. Make school children to be able to feed people.
And that's where Mustafa talked about the change, the transition we are seeing. A lot of people, even in northern Nigeria, are saying across the country, we need the best man for the job, and we should encourage that. And I wonder what the Christians will be thinking of now, what will be on their mind, how they will respond. But I believe that stakeholders must take charge of narrative and ensure that we don't get a response that will want to match what the clerics say. It has to be moderated in such a way that we put a handle to this. The Bishops' Conference, Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria visit to the president. I told you earlier, the dust rate is still very high. Bishop Stephen Adebite of the Methodist Church, who is the Director General of the Christian Pilgrims Commission, and the head of the chapel at State House Abuja, was on a national TV and accused Cardinal Naeka of taking sides and disparaging President Tinubu, who he does not support. And not just him, the president of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, that's a body of Pentecostal churches in Nigeria, Bishop Oke also said, any attack on the Catholic bishops is an attack on the body of Christ.
In fact, he was very bitter about it. You know, that's talking about Bishop Wale Oke. And he was also bitter about the bill that the Senate passed saying you cannot preach in buses. That's another matter entirely. But you see, I do not understand the angle that Bishop Adegbite is coming from, because it's somebody I also know fairly well. You know, we went to Jerusalem together at one time. And I do not understand, because Bishop Onayekon was not parochial.
What he said was that after the 2023 presidential election, Cardinal Onayekon refused
what
just for our viewers and listeners to be carried along. Onayekon refused to accept Tinubu as president, saying he has to wait for the outcome of the final judicial contest, the Supreme Court judgment, before he will accept him as a president.
And let me ask you, what was wrong in that? If he says, let's wait for the judicial pronouncement because there was litigation, I do not see anything wrong in that. I don't know the angst that he has against
but he has already
Bishop.
taken office.
Bishop.
No, that
was before. No.
Amechi, let's call a spade a spade. When a president has already been sworn in, except if judiciary say no, you don't have any legal right to say that he's not your president. And let's go to, there are some other issues that are also tied to this. Nowhere in the world, when you do some of these things that in public spaces, like smoking in public places, preaching in public places like the bus. Are we the most religious nation in the world when people are building factories, manufacturing cars, Android
That's
phones?
That's not the issue that we're discussing today.
It becomes a public nuisance.
That's not what we're... Let's not
finish.
Let's not debate.
I did not interject when you were talking. Let me finish. There's what is called public nuisance in law of tort. You have private nuisance in public nuisance.
Have you gone through that bill? Because what I'm hearing is that it's an old law. And perhaps I want us to go through that bill so that we have a proper...
If we discuss it today, we may not be able to discuss it fully.
Bosses are not meant for
so
preaching.
that we have a proper understanding.
What I'm saying is that
what the bill says and all that.
We've all been traveling around the world. Are bosses meant for to be
tarry
preaching?
Tarry on a while. Let's go on a break. When we come back, our guest is waiting for us. He will join issues with us and offer perspectives on the issue of the state of the nation ahead of 2027 presidential election. Do stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Power Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll soon be joined by Austin Ibe, electoral reforms expert, to take a look at the situation, the environment of the electoral system in Nigeria. The electoral process ongoing. Many milestones achieved, many more waiting to be achieved as the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on Sunday announced the extension of the deadline for the upload of names of governors, governorship candidates, deputy governorship candidates, and state assemblies candidates to his portal to now expire on Tuesday, August 11. We want to find out why the political parties were unable to take advantage of the long-established day to clean up their own side of this table and have the names uploaded. Record that INEC also extended the period for upload of names of presidential, vice presidential, and National Assembly elections. Austin Ibe will provide insights when he joins us. But let's conclude on our discourse on the issue of the responses to the Catholic Bishops' Conference position, the Pentecostal
Fellowship
fellow
of Nigeria.
PFN President Bishop Oke, siding with the Catholic bishops, why Bishop Adebite, Executive Secretary, Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Commission, thinking otherwise, accusing Onaeka of partisanship.
You know, I was saying before that I don't know what angst he has against Bishop Onaeka. Well, if Bishop Onaeka wanted to wait till the litigation was over before acknowledging anybody, that was absolutely his own business. I do not see how that affects Nigerians
His
or the
personal
fact.
business.
Yes, exactly. His very personal business, you know. It wasn't the view of the church or whatever. And then to what they went to see the president for. There was nothing he said that was not what Nigerians were going through. He simply pointed out the fact that Nigerians are suffering, they are hungry, and they are going through a lot of hardship, which every right-thinking Nigerian understands. Even the president acknowledges that in most of his speeches. So I think that some people have said, he's a man who has always benefited from government. Even when he was not the DG of Khan, he was benefiting from, he was always going to Jerusalem, sponsored by the government. And being an appointee of the president, what would you have expected him to
Mustafa Mohammed, there was this Islamic group that went to see the president. Was it on Friday or when?
Yes, over the weekend.
Was it on Friday?
I think it was on Thursday.
So we are seeing more religious leaders troop to Aso Rock, unlike the Catholic bishops. The outcome of that outcome of the meeting was more positive, in quote. I saw them exchange banters and pat each others on the back.
The leader of the Tijaniya sect in Nigeria and other prominent Tijaniya scholars from Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, prominently present. They went to see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the meeting was so positive. We didn't hear any controversy after. But still speaking about
did they endorse the president?
No, you know, we are not privy to their private meeting.
Okay, it was a private, unlike that those of the Catholic bishops.
Yes, but they have a
journalists were allowed.
They have a national conference, I think, in Abuja. But still talking about the Tijaniya, we heard that the Kano State governor allegedly stopped them from the use of Sani Abacha Stadium for their conference. But you see, the Tijaniya sects have large numbers in Kano. And I don't think it's a wise idea for...
So does the state governor think that they are not politically aligned to his interests or what?
We really don't know, but you see, if they are angry with the system, they can use their numbers, and that will not be very good for the state governor to be making enemies. You know, he has Konkwasiya movement to have to fight. Now he has Tijaniya group to fight. So I really don't know how that will help him.
I do not think that it is right for any governor or president of a country to stop a group. You know, there's freedom of association, there's freedom of expression. You have no right to stop anybody from the use of public space so long as they apply, you know, they go through the normal processes to acquire the place. I think that it is very, very wrong.
The next set of visitors to Aso Rock Presidential Villa. Catholic bishops have gone, the Muslim group have gone. What about the traditionalists? The fast, the Ikengas? Mustafa, what name do you call it in the northern part of Nigeria?
We have several tribes. Every tribe has its own name, but maybe the popular ones now, Bokaye, Babalo, the traditional
which group will visit Aso Rock Presidential Villa next, since the gates have been thrown open to welcome religious leaders? Remember that we're a secular state, and there are traditional African religionists who will say, give us our own rights. Anyway, let's welcome our guest for today, Osinaibo, electoral reform experts. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You didn't mention that I was going to be the next to visit.
To Aso Rock Presidential, on what capacity? Under what constituency?
As a religious believer. It's a new one, you don't know it.
So which group do you profess to?
See, we all profess to...
Is it Ogun Sango or one God Almighty?
No, it's religious believer.
He says he's a religious believer.
I'm a bit confused.
You can use AI.
But you're entitled to it.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
entitled to it. If you succeed.
Exactly.
If you
Good
succeed.
morning.
Good morning. I know you've been keeping close tabs on the developments in the electoral system in the run-up to the elections. Perhaps we'll start with the extension of the deadline till Tuesday, August 11, for the upload of names of governorship, deputy governorship, and as a state assembly election candidates, what must have informed that decision?
Like Ines said, certain protest or pleading or whatever name we want to say, but they've heeded to the cry of political parties and they need to extend. But it actually worries me that no party missed the deadline for the primaries. Why take this like forever? Even the ruling party, we thought could actually have that kind of challenge because they have more of they were more of the hot seat because of the commotions of aspirants in that party. But they met the deadline. I mean, I'm really surprised. But INEC usually want to be seen to be doing seen, not the perception. So you want to see that, oh, I've listened to you. Don't forget INEC extended deadline of the election. The timetable was reversed. So they continue to listen, maybe until a point in time when they may not be able to listen to any other political association.
Right now, there's a lot of litigation going on in political parties. Like I know of the ADC, there's a whole lot of litigation in states, particularly in the Southwest, because of the alleged interference by the former Minister of the Interior. And, that's Aregbesola. And you recall that the elders of the Southwest, of the party in the Southwest last week demanded that he resign. So there's a whole lot. And these litigations are still pending, and that might be the reason why they were not able to, of course, meet up with INEC's deadline. How do you think this is going to impact on the process?
So the assumption is that it's only ADC that
No, not that. I'm just saying, I know the ADC.
Okay.
NDC has its own too.
Because what INEC said was that political party pleaded, and usually they would have pleaded on the platform of IPAC, which also happened then with the extension of the timeline for primaries. It was IPAC who made that plea. But however, to your point, it is the chair of the party and the secretary that has the statutory responsibility to send nominated names to INEC. So if, like you're saying, that the secretary of the party, as of this moment, had an issue in a zone, but what about the other zone? So can we bluff off this zone? But I don't even think so, because the chair of the party is the one who bears all of this burden. So if there are issues in the Southwest, it should affect the upload of those candidates. In any case...
No, the issues were actually with the primaries, the result of the primaries.
So every party...
Names that did not contest the primaries were allegedly...
Yes, so what you do, which is not the first time, these are pre-election matter. If the party end up uploading a name that will be dropped at by the court, whether High Court or Appeal Court or whatever, in the future, you know what will happen to those candidates. It will just be swapped. So even if the candidate did not participate in the election, but arguably he won the primaries. We've had that case before, even though now we say, let's not use the Celestine Omeya's example. It's irrelevant. Let's drop it. We're past the Celestine Omeya's position, that we should go beyond that. But I see this 2027 election almost going back to that kind of setting, because not just in the ADC, the APC also had those challenges. NDC also had those challenges. There were people who thought they won, but I'm still waiting. There are still cases, particularly for the NDC, not to amplify any specific, there are certain individuals still laying claim to those votes. I mean, that they won the primaries. But that is why the setup of that reconciliation committee became eminent. So maybe that NDC would have been among the party that may have also appealed to say, please, allow us these few days.
Give us some time.
Yes, but I think anyone that misses Tuesday may have to go to Supreme Court, and maybe we may have another Supreme Court governor in the future.
Part of the problem may be because of the fact that the parties refuse to release winners of their primaries.
Yes.
Unlike in the past, within 24 hours You know who the winners are. But after conducting these primaries, apart from presidential election, for National Assembly, for governorship, not much on it, but for state assembly, they held it back. I don't know what they were cooking within. They bossed themselves to a corner where when they saw that the deadline was approaching, they couldn't upload, and they had to start making appeals to INEC to extend.
You are very correct. I think that's where, so in the military, there's what they call take correction. When you take correction, and see the next man. So, so they must have taken correction from APC. APC started it. Go to the primaries. Don't declare result. If you declare result, you are on your own. The national is the one that have the power and the authority to declare the winner. So all the other parties just took correction. So they all technically avoided to have a situation where somebody won at the point of the elections. And don't forget, it was the first time that parties were coerced to run a direct primaries, which, in my opinion, impacted on them greatly. Because there were people who had strongholds, who control certain areas. They ran their own primaries, and they won, and it was public. There were others who sat in their offices because they got the power of authority. They also announced their own results. You saw what happened in Edo, even though the senatorial election had been decided, and those who may have won, let me say, I don't want to say legitimately with the videos we saw, but I've also considered to say, no, we are party people. Let it flow. We saw that in Delta. We saw that in Cross River. In fact, it was a landslide.
Do you think the political space has been deliberately narrowed down against so many contestants? Because, like, for example, in APC, the governors led so many of the states to decide who should contest and who should not. And then after the primaries, results were withheld. Now, looking at the structure of our politicking, where the system does not allow for an independent candidate, do you think in the future, if we can have such electoral reforms that will allow people to contest independent of the political parties, do you think many of such crises will no longer be there as much as it is today?
I've answered this question before when people talked about independent candidacy. It exists in Ghana and its area. It also, let me give you the one I saw in the US example, where at the presidential elections in the US.
I remember Ross Perot.
Thank you.
Ross Perot.
Everybody knows that it is either this or this. There were certain independent candidates who wanted to appear at the debate, and they said, you didn't meet the threshold. We only want to do one. The problem of independent candidacy, which, of course, let me not mention them, at the point where there was this movement for not too young to run.
Yes.
Independent candidates were part of the ideology to push for the reduction of age and an independent candidacy. And this was an advice that came at some point, that you may get an independent at the local level.
Yes, or parliamentary level.
Or at parliamentary level.
Exactly.
So that you can win in a smaller place. But to coordinate an election, let's even say the presidency or the governor, is a huge task. That even if you become an independent candidate, how do we make sure that you meet you create the platform that you enable your vote to appear on the ballot? Otherwise, we're going to have a ballot paper that is as long from here to AYA. Because
so that means we have to just make sure we set high standards.
And if you set high standard, if you set high standard, then what is the essence of it? So the question will be, most people are saying you must earn it on the ballot. So you have to go and get people to sign for you.
Yes.
And if you get that number, if INEC sees that number and says, well, these signatories are fake, what do you then do?
In some of these constituencies, many of these political parties do not field candidates. It's just the big ones, as it were. So when that independent candidacy comes in and you set strict conditions, those that have the capacity, because politics is not for the ordinary. You must have resources, no doubt about it. You must have that capacity to mobilize. Mobilize resources, mobilize support. So when you set that stringent rules, if there's an independent candidacy, Ned Nwoko will want to be there. You say you don't want to mention names. I know names that would have run, but okay, just make a comment.
Let's assume you said the threshold.
Yes.
And the power that be, I'm very conscious of that word. Don't forget this, we have a provision for recall in this country. You know what?
Which has
more
never
recently
been
we
used.
recall?
Yes.
We've tried to use it. It never worked. Even in Obasanjo regime, in Jigawa State, the first time it was tested, it could not work. That was just recall
Because it was too
process.
stringent.
It was too because at the end of the day, you have to justify with a signatory that this threshold meet the demand to even process to go to the to go and do the validation at the polling unit or whatever location INEC may declare. What that means is that if I know you are going to vote on that day, and I have my small resources to push in, I will scatter everywhere. We know this violence in this country.
I think the first time it was tested was with JCN Waku. That was in Benue State at that time.
Which was it
Senator
Obasanjo?
Waku.
Yes, under Obasanjo, yes. It was
Joseph
Senator Waku. And he was
So,
almost the
I
most
think it was
popular
said-
senator then. Yes, it was JCN Waku.
Yerima.
And I think what he did was to just reach out to his friends in APP and AD at that time. So while the PDP was angry to remove him, he gathered all the votes from APP and AD. And of course, they couldn't vote him out. They couldn't vote for his...
So maybe the example I was talking about was an example, I think Senator Yerima, I can't remember his name, who told us in 2007, how in 2007, in 2020, in 2002, before the election of 2003, that Obasanjo made every effort, but it never worked. Either it's Zamfara or Jigawa, but maybe what you're saying. But
No,
whichever way,
JCN
it has never worked. Because I heard it from the senator in our
But you
meeting.
just spoke that it will have succeeded in Ghana. Why do you think we cannot succeed in Nigeria?
So in Ghana, it worked with the parliament. So you can only, we have seen independent candidate winning to the Ghana parliament.
Yes.
Which, like Amechi said, it's a bit easier. You have a constituency where you are very pronounced, you are big, you don't have to go too far. If you go, after the 2027 election, go and check result of senators, certain senators. You'll be surprised that they won with about 1,500 votes, 2,000 votes. I can secure that number.
Yes, if you do your homework.
Then that means we can start somewhere.
If you do
But
your homework.
I am saying how do you get yourself on the ballot? So if you put measures in place to create that, for you to get on the ballot, these voters in my area will sign.
It becomes easier to win the main election than the primary election.
So maybe that's where it will get us to. But however, I'm saying that if INEC comes tomorrow, like what happened in the Natasha case, the INEC said, well, we verified these signatures and it didn't meet the threshold. So we are not going ahead to proceed with it. So assuming...
So
that,
now, are you saying that it is the electoral umpire that will constitute the roadblock?
I am saying that whoever controls this institution will control you out. First of all, people who go for independent candidacy eventually were members of a political party. So they may have gotten angry, like we know with jump shipping now. So you would have just removed decamping from one party to another to decamping to an independent, which is provided for. So I am saying that before you end to get on the ballot, assume that for councillor, they say you must have 200 people to sign for you to end on the ballot. Then you move into the Senate, and they say for you to get on the Senate, the total registered numbers in that senatorial district, let's say, is 200,000. So you must get 20% of those to get in. And
Which
you
is
know...
20,000. Which is 20,000.
Which is 20,000. And somebody will go into one room and cook up 20,000 votes and then have signatures because there's a register at his disposal, but there's no signature for him to mimic.
What if the person is not cooking up the numbers and has actually that number of persons to sign for him? You see, if we do not try this thing, how are we going to find out if it will work or not? We haven't even given it a chance.
We try what we know will not work. Why do you have to
If
go
it can
the
work in Ghana, even at that level, why can we not start in Nigeria?
So, I don't have a problem with it. I'm actually saying it's a model that we have. I just told you what happened. How I got to this decision. I used to promote independent candidate, but I have withdrawn from it because of the cost of elections. You see, if there's a... So we have... How many parties do we have in Nigeria?
Okay,
we don't have that number in
PT
Ghana.
for INEC,
Pardon?
You're pitying INEC?
No, I'm pitying the candidate that will waste their time and energy and eventually declare as an independent candidate and they don't win. Then we come back to this kind of...
That's what my colleagues are saying. That's the starting point. We'll take it up from there and move to the next level. But taking a look at this electoral process so far, since 1999, I would say it's the most chaotic, most confusing. We don't know what the deadlines are. We are few weeks to primary. We are still debating over which is it direct, the electoral. And it started from the nature of the Electoral Act the National Assembly amended.
Yes.
They imputed so much politics without thinking about good governance of the country.
And the consequences.
And the antics of the political parties. From what we have seen post-primaries, the primaries of the political parties are no different from the conduct of local council election by states of the federation. We have never seen it so chaotic. Who won? We didn't know. Up till now, we are waiting for INEC to upload. How did we get here?
You see, when this is the process, for every primary election, INEC observes the process. And ideally, in an ideal situation, when INEC participates in the process, INEC takes away the person who is declared in that process. However, wait for the political party, because the Supreme Court has ruled that the internal affairs of the party is solely.
Yes.
So INEC cannot usurp those processes. If INEC had observed primary election where you have five individuals emerging as winners, INEC is somewhere that follow this process to the point of declaration. They write their own report to the commission. If any of these aspirants eventually appear in court, INEC is subpoenaed to present his own report. But we have not seen that. We have
seen one or two cases where the court overturned the decision of the party.
Yes. Previously, we are open to see it in this election.
No, I've seen one or two.
Already?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
But do you think the parties with that Supreme Court judgment have become so powerful? Because I still recall when Ahmed Lawal, who has not participated in the primary, the former Senate president in the previous election, was submitted to INEC, and the current Senate president also had the same issues. Are all these things going to be pre-election matters? You just have, if you disagree with your parties, go to court. The Supreme Court or a Court of Appeal will receive and give you. Do you think this is these things are good for the system?
So you see, the example Amechi just brought is that there have been cases, which is something that we need to stay on. By the Supreme Court, by the Electoral Act, Amechi, remember, we have discussed what the parliamentarians wanted to do with the Electoral Act. Put themselves strategically so that they fence out the war. After all, the president told them in the last two budget presentations that because they were standing on this mandate, they were all going to return. So they created an Electoral Act that was supposed to benefit them, and the Electoral Act now went against them. So that is a bane today, that what we intended for good has not changed. But the case of the current Senate President and the former Senate President is a case where you have to shut out. You remember in the Lawal's case you mentioned, the man who initially had the ticket went to court, but the Supreme Court stopped him. The appeal court has said, yes, he was the candidate. That there's nothing like that. He didn't participate. There were evidence that this individual went for the presidential, it was cited at the primary election of the presidential candidate. So he participated. His name was on the ballot. Suddenly, after the process was over, he reappeared, and there were two of them. You know that they had to, it was also this APC thing that this is an internal affairs of the party. No, again,
they flog a baby and the baby cannot cry. Right?
If you cry, you have more trouble, because what you should do is to try to cry when you are giving the milk. You then try to also calm down. I think the real bane is politicians usurping powers or creating laws. They call it reform, but to their own benefit. And at the end of the day, it actually weaponizes against them rather than against others they wanted to go against.
Quite interesting. Let's see how this will play out. A lot of cases are already in court.
A lot of them.
And we'll see what the courts will say in outcome and all that. But huge lessons for the political parties, huge lessons for INEC. Like I said, for me, this is about the most chaotic. I hope we'll have ample time. It doesn't flow over into the main election in January and February.
It will flow over. Let's just expect how we navigate it, because we are just, this is August. You know, when the Electoral Act came, it was close to the period of primaries, and indirect primaries left. Suddenly, parties were coerced to do what they do with INEC, but they don't want to do it internally and properly. And maybe just so you know how the election was, yes. 1, 7, 40, so they wanted the numbers, yes. Not necessarily the process.
May God help us. It's a long, tortuous process, and it calls for hard work. We must continue to put in the hard work. Reformation of the electoral process is continuous, but we hope we'll get to the promised land before the 40 years Israelites spent on the wilderness. We can do it in 1999 to 2006. That's about 28 years. We can do it in a record time, even though we are moving closer to the 40-year period. I have to thank you so much, Austin Aibe, for joining us today. We enjoy the clarity and the perspective you brought to bear on our analysis for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also for being part of the program today. My name is Amit Chianakwu. On behalf of my colleagues, Uju Eje and Mustafa Mohammed, have a good time.